The Pan-African Parliament held a two-day summit on climate policy and equity on the sidelines of the second ordinary session of the 6th Parliament. The two-day summit was organized by the Continental Legislative Body jointly with the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance under the theme, A Continent at the Crossroads. The Pan-African Parliament is currently in session at its headquarters in Midrand, South Africa. Joining us on the line is Mr. GERHARD, SHIIMI, Member of Parliament in the National Council and Pan-African Parliament members serving in the Committee on Rural Economy, Agriculture, Natural Resources and Environment. Mr. SHIIMI, good evening and welcome to the show.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Mr. SHIIMI, perhaps you can share with us some of the key areas that the Climate Summit focused on.
Thank you very much for having me online. Good evening to the viewers. My name is GERHARD, SHIIMI. The summit looked at the area of impact of the climate change, such as food security, migration, disaster and drought, among others, and the possible solutions. Africa, being the richest continent, contributed the least of carbon emissions, yet suffer for the most consequences of the climate change.
Mr. SHIIMI, talk to us about how climate change affects the continent of Africa.
Yeah, actually, as everybody knows and aware, the climate change is a very dangerous element in Africa. It can cause drought, cyclones like the other one which you have read in Malawi and Mozambique, floods like the other one we had in northern of Namibia there. And it can also increase the temperature in the area of any area. And it also increase the sea level that will be led up to the direct or indirect impact on the African continent.
Talk to us about what PAP's position on this issue is, as a continental legislative body.
Yeah, well, the summit adopts that Africa needs to move forward with one voice, and that voice should be nothing for us without us. And we should demand a seat at the global table. But the other point is that the road to the COP28 should be a collective voice for Africa, and that should be the renewable and the green energy usage, green industrializations and reduction of carbon emissions to zero. And the other thing also, we are not only in a position to limit our own carbon emission, but we can help and assist others in reducing emission as well. So the clearest path of availability of humanity and the met of Africa demand of a green industry revolution, and the call is made for the continent or for the countries of the world to reduce their carbon emissions to net zero in order to sustain human civilizations beyond the year 2050.
Now, of course, we do know that Namibia is one of the countries that has the least contribution to the global carbon emission. I think it's at something like 0.03%, very, very little. How do we then, as a country whose, this issue isn't a great one or a grave one to us, how do we assist, fellow countries in reducing their carbon emissions, as you've just mentioned?
Yeah, well, Namibia has its own resources, as everybody is aware, and these resources can also contribute to the green industrialization, to invite the investors in our countries and establish their industrialization within our countries, and then we do a renewable energy that can also be friendly to environment in Namibia as well as in the world.
Perhaps you can highlight for us some of the interventions that were identified for implementation from this summit, Mr. SHIIMI.
Yeah, the call was made by the Africans is follow on the managing of the climate change and its effects through empowering and mobilization of people, more especially the youth in particular, to capacitate it and address the climate change. Africa should be part of the solutions and not only part of the problems. Further, the use of renewable energy should strongly be emphasized in productions to cut the use of fossil fuels, which is contributing to the emissions. This initiative will not only save the planet, but will provide Africa with opportunity for processing of all raw material mined here and enhance job opportunity for the young ones. And Africa also free trade agree to enhance this agenda of trading among ourselves first, so that we take a control of our resources and their processing, so we enhance a green industrialization. And we should therefore hold strongly resolute and extremely the dream of our forefather for a better Africa we have.
Fantastic. Any final comments from you, Mr. SHIIMI?
Yes, Madam. The summit actually is very impressive. Everybody is participating, and I've learned a lot. Thereby, I have realized that some other countries, they have gone so far away to introduce the law or the policies on the climate change. Some they have gone up to the provinces or Senate and come up with a very better solutions on attending to the climate change. That should be also one part of our country to partake, so that we can also be ready for our action against or to attend to the climate change.
Fantastic. Well, Mr. SHIIMI, thank you so much for your time this evening, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Bye.